So Pete, is it a matter of time before the right buyer comes along?
It's a great question, Karen. So many homeowners selling their properties have this sort of preconceived idea that there's this right buyer, and in a way that's true, there is this right buyer, but they attach this idea that it's just a matter of time and that buyer will come along, and so a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the marketing, 4 weeks go by. It reminds me of that time. Remember that property we were selling at Ascot, and it had been on the market for 9 months with a local, very well-known agent in that Ascot, Hamilton, Clayfield area, and in a great street. I loved the street, and it was a really beautiful home, a big family home, not on a huge block, but just a great property. 9 months, and they actually opened it for sale, I think opened for inspection nearly every Saturday for 9 months. Look, you know, there's that old saying about if you don't change something, nothing will change, and that's the truth. Like, you can't expect to keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again and expect nothing to change, you know, something to change, that suddenly you'll have this buyer show up on your doorstep. So when we got called in on that property, we started from the beginning. We looked at the property, we did an appraisal of the property, of its values, just to make sure that the owner's expectations and where they had been pitching it to the market in terms of price actually lined up with reality, and, you know, let's get real from the beginning. So we did that first, but we had a really good look at the property in terms of how's it presenting itself to the market, and the owners actually had done some styling to get it ready for sale with the previous agents. In fact, they took some advice and they painted a wall and all of this sort of stuff. So when we came in, we looked at the property from the eyes of a buyer, your perfect buyer. We worked out who that perfect buyer was, and as it turns out, it was somebody we think would be different, or was going to be different to where the property or the buyer that they were pitching to in the first place. So right for the first 9 months, I think they were actually pitching it to the wrong buyer, and of course they were attracting the wrong buyer, and hence that's why they never had an offer or a sale was made. So we restyled the property. We actually painted out the wall that they had painted for the sale of the property. I remember we changed the dining room over to the lounge and the lounge over to the dining room, and then we really just kept it simple from there, and we targeted that buyer. We went, where are they looking, and what hot buttons do we have to push to get them into the property. The first open home was done on a Thursday night. I think it was a Thursday night, and we did it as a drinks night. So we did a little cocktail party, and we had half a dozen buyers that came through, and our buyer came through that night, and within a week they put in an offer, and within 2 weeks we had an unconditional contract on the property. After 9 months, without having to do anything severe with the price, just little adjustments on everything, pitching it to the right person. So time is a killer, and you're going to ask yourself this question. Just think of the two things when it comes to a property that's been sitting on the market a long time. What are the two things that come to your mind? And usually most people will say it's one, you know, these two things. It's overpriced, or there's something wrong with it, or combination of both. Overpriced or something wrong with it. And that's the thing. Time is a killer. So the longer you leave a property on the market with an agent and do nothing and don't change anything, then eventually the market's going to perceive or actually label it with either a problem or being overpriced. And half the time, that's an unwarranted, got the bell there, let's not get run over by bikes, and don't run into that pole while you're walking either. You know, so half the time when a property's been on the market too long, and it does get this label, this perception of being overpriced or something wrong with it, it's actually unwarranted. So it's not a disaster, just like in that Ascot property. You just have to start afresh. New agent comes in, new perspective.
New eyes.
New eyes, absolutely. And, you know, I talk a lot about that in my book as well, The Love Price, so you can get a copy of that on our website. Here's a little plug. Yeah, so that's. I hope that answers your question.